I had a title once, I had a belt once, I had a future once, and then I stepped out of the arena into the street, and I had none of those things. The truck was white. I remember that clearly. Everything else moved too fast to remember. The roar of the crowd was still in my ears. The championship belt was still in my hand. My name, Choi Hyun-seok, was still ringing through the stadium. 31 years of bleeding and breaking and getting back up. 31 years of being told I was the best, and then, white, silence. The belt hit the pavement before I did. I never heard it land. I remember thinking it was a joke. The kind of joke the universe pulls when you stop paying attention. I had just become the strongest man in the world. It should have meant something. It did not protect me from a truck going 40 kilometers an hour. Nothing does. What came after the white was not darkness. It was light. Soft, golden, unbearably warm, and a voice, high-pitched, nervous, apologetic before it even began. Choi Hyun-seok? Champion of the world's largest fighting league? I opened my eyes. A small glowing figure hovered in front of me. Wings. Tiny. Anxious. She looked like a fairy from a children's story. She looked like someone who had made a very big mistake. "My name is Rachel," she said. "I am here to offer you a second life, as a hero, in another world." I stared at her for a long time. "A hero," I said. "Wealth," she said. "Honor, beauty, power, everything a champion deserves." I looked at my hands, still the hands I'd built over 31 years. Rough, scarred, mine. "All right," I said. I did not have better options. That was the first mistake. The portal was gold and warm and humming with promise. Rachel's hands were shaking as she opened it. I should have noticed that. I did not. The world on the other side smelled like iron and smoke. Not the iron of an arena. Something older, wilder. I stepped through expecting banners, cheering crowds, a gleaming kingdom waiting. What I found was a creature 8 feet tall, built like a mountain given legs, the head of a bull, massive, black-horned, unimpressed. Behind it, rows of armored shapes, horns, fangs, claws, the army of the Demon King, watching me. The bull-headed officer looked down at me. A long, slow examination. "Hero," it said. Its voice was like gravel being crushed. "You were saying you were the hero?" I looked behind me. The portal was already gone. Rachel had vanished. I looked back at the army. Hundreds of red eyes in the dark. "I think so," I said. That was the second mistake. Saying it out loud. Confirming it. Because the word hero in the demon world does not mean savior. It means enemy. It means weapon of the other side. It means, they told me this very calmly, slave. The chains were surprisingly well made. I remember thinking that. Even as they locked them on. Even as they marched me into the fortress. Even as the gate closed behind me and the torchlight replaced the sky. I thought, these are quality chains. They know what they are doing here. I would survive. That much I had decided. Whatever it took. However long it took, I would survive. The second slave unit was not what I expected. I expected suffering, howling, broken things. What I found was something quieter, worse, resignation, to 20-odd people in a stone room, bruised, hollow-eyed, going through motions. Some of them had been heroes once too, summoned by the human kingdoms, captured in battle. Some were ordinary humans taken in raids. All of them had learned the same lesson: do not stand out, do not resist, do not be interesting to the wrong people. I had been interesting my entire life. I did not know how to stop. The overseer assigned us tasks the first morning: rock breaking, trench digging, load carrying, work that used a body until there was nothing left. I worked, I watched, I measured every guard, every schedule, every chain. An old habit from the ring: you do not win by being stronger, you win by understanding. And I had 31 years of learning how to understand opponents. On the third day, a man twice my width tried to take my food. He was demon-blooded, tall, contemptuous. He reached for my bowl. I broke 2 of his fingers before he registered I had moved. The room went silent. I sat down and ate. That was the beginning of something. Not respect, not yet, but something the demons recognized. They have a word for it. I did not know it then. I learned it later. It meant the kind of person who does not stay where you put them. Survival in the demon army had rules. Unwritten ones. The kind that get you killed if you miss them. Rule 1. Strength is currency. In the human world, strength was performance. Something to display. Something to be rewarded for. Here, it was simply how things worked. A larger demon ate first. A stronger slave got better work. A man who could hold a line got noticed. I had been the strongest human in my world. Here I was merely notable, not special, not feared. Just interesting enough to watch. Rule 2. Loyalty runs up, not across. Among the slaves there were factions. The old-timers who had made peace with the walls. The newcomers still crying at night. The few, like me, who watched and waited. We did not trust each other, but we also did not betray each other pointlessly. It was a kind of professionalism. I understood that. Rule 3. The demons were not what I had been told. This was the one that took the longest to learn, the one that changed everything after. But in those early weeks, it was still only a feeling, a small doubt, the sense that the story I had expected to be in was not the story I was actually in. I filed that feeling away, kept it safe, waited to understand what it meant. By the end of the first month, the overseers ran tests. Not exams, nothing so formal, just situations. They put you in them and watched what you did. The first test was a fight. 4 slaves against a young demon recruit. The recruit was being trained for combat. We were the practice. The 4 of us were expected to lose quickly and instructively. 3 of the others did. I did not. I lasted 11 minutes against something that could bend iron with its hands. I used every technique 31 years had given me. I used the walls, the floor, the leverage of angles. I used the way a bigger opponent tends to be certain of its victory, just long enough for that certainty to become a problem. When it finally put me down, I was bleeding from 3 places. The recruit was limping. That had not been the expected outcome. The overseers were quiet afterward. The kind of quiet that means you have created a problem for someone. I sat in the dirt and caught my breath and felt something I had not felt in weeks. Interest. My own interest in what came next, whatever came next. I would survive it. That much I had decided, whatever it took. Rachel found me 2 months after her catastrophic mistake. She looked worse than I felt, smaller somehow. Her wings were crooked, her glow was dim. She landed in front of me during the night shift and folded her hands and said, very quietly, "I'm sorry." I looked at her for a long time. "You sent me to the wrong side," I said. "Yes," she said, "of a war. Yes, as a slave, she couldn't meet my eyes. I tried to fix it," she said. "The portal closed too fast. The coordinates were wrong. By the time I realized, how long have you known where I was?" A pause. 2 months, she said. I had expected rage to come then, the hot, explosive kind I'd felt in the ring when a referee made a bad call. It didn't. What came instead was something colder, more useful. "Can you get me out?" I asked. "Not yet," she said. "The Demon King's barrier. Then why are you here?" She looked at me. Something complicated moved through her small, glowing face. "Because I was punished," she said, "for the mistake. I was demoted. They assigned me to you, as your subordinate, until you return to the correct side." I stared at her. "You're my fairy," I said. "I'm your subordinate," she corrected with some dignity. I almost smiled. The first time in 2 months. "Welcome to the slave unit," I said. "Try not to be useful." She looked horrified. Good. She would learn. With Rachel came information. She could fly where I could not, listen at doors I couldn't reach, read the demon script I was still learning. We made an arrangement. Not friendship. Something more practical. Mutual survival with occasional complaints from both sides. The overseers had noticed my fight performance. I was moved to harder labor, which meant closer to the actual structure of the second slave unit. Closer to the chain of command. I watched the slave commanders, men and women who had stopped fighting the walls and started learning to operate within them. Some of them had grown brutal, the way small power makes people brutal. Others had simply become efficient. I studied the efficient ones. Rachel brought me the schedule rotations, the shift changes, the supply runs, the names of guards who could be talked to and names of guards who could not be. I memorized everything. I did not know what I was building, but I built it anyway, the way I had always trained, without a clear destination. Only the certainty that preparation is the only thing between you and the moment it all goes wrong. There was a corridor in the slave quarters where disputes were settled. The demons called it something I won't translate. It meant, roughly, the place where you find out what you are, find out what the person across from you is. I ended up there in the 8th week, not by choice. The slave commander, a thick-necked former soldier called the Neck among us, had decided that my behavior during the recruit training fight was a challenge to his authority. It wasn't. But authority is fragile in a cage. It needs to be defended constantly. He challenged me in the corridor, in front of everyone. I didn't want the fight. I want to be clear about that. I had no interest in becoming a slave commander. I wanted to survive, to wait, to eventually find a way home. But a refusal in that corridor wasn't neutrality. A refusal was a different kind of challenge. So I fought. 3 minutes. He was bigger than me, stronger in raw terms. He had also spent months doing labor rather than training. A champion's body breaks down. Mine had not. When it was over, the corridor was quiet, the way a room goes quiet when something has shifted and everyone feels it before they understand it. The guards came, not to punish, to record. Someone above had been watching. Someone above had decided I was ready for a different kind of problem. I did not know it then. I was too busy trying to breathe through my cracked ribs. But the walls had changed. Not the stone ones, the ones that actually mattered. The promotion came without ceremony. A guard found me at the morning work allocation and said, "You're the new unit commander," and walked away. That was it. That was the extent of the transition. One moment I was the slave with the interesting fighting habits. The next I was responsible for 23 people in a stone room inside a demon fortress at the edge of a war I had nothing to do with. The responsibility felt strange, not heavy, not light. Strange, like putting on a coat that belongs to someone else and finding that it fits. I had led training camps before, back home, groups of athletes who trusted me to push them correctly. This was different. These were people who had given up on the idea of their own futures, and I was not sure I could give that back to them. But I could give them something smaller, something more immediate. I could give them the sense that the person responsible for them was paying attention. That is more than most of them had known in a long time. I set new rules on the first day, quietly, without announcement. No one steals from anyone else in this unit. Work is distributed by rotation, not by whoever shouts loudest. If someone is sick, they say so, and we cover. Simple things. The kind of rules a team needs to function. The old-timers tested them immediately. I held the line without anger. Just steadiness. By the end of the first week, something had shifted in the room. The resignation was still there. But under it, something else. A small, careful thing. Almost like purpose, I would survive. I had decided. And now, somehow, I had brought 23 people along with me. I had not intended that. I was not sure how to feel about it. Being slave commander brought access, not freedom, not rights. Access. The ability to walk through certain corridors unescorted, to attend the allocation meetings, to speak sometimes to the lower officers. I used every inch of it. Rachel was invaluable in those weeks. She had begun to understand the demon army structure, the way it was organized into legions, corps, regiments, the way each commander had their own style, their own priorities, their own blind spots. She brought me maps, organizational charts, the names of people above us in the chain. I studied them the way I used to study opponents' fight footage, slow, systematic, looking for the pattern. There was a pattern. The demon army was not a single thing. It was a collection of ambitions wearing the same uniform. The commanders fought each other as much as they fought the humans. Resources, prestige, the demon king's attention, all of it in constant, carefully managed tension. I had spent my whole career navigating exactly that kind of structure. The politics of strength. The way power moves between people who all think they deserve more of it. I understood this world, not its magic, not its history, not its monsters, but the way people behave inside it, that I understood completely. And understanding is the beginning of everything. I want to be clear. I did not choose this. No one in my position would choose this. The Legion Commander, a vast and intimidating demon I had never personally spoken to, had dogs. Not dogs in the way I understood dogs. Great, scaled, fire-adjacent creatures that slept outside his chambers and occasionally melted the stone floor when they breathed. He called them his pets. His previous breeder had died. The circumstances were not explained to me. And somehow, through a chain of events involving my unit's above-average performance record, a bureaucratic error in the allocation system, and Rachel panicking and agreeing to something she shouldn't have, I became the Legion Commander's exclusive pet dog breeder. I stood in front of the kennels on the first morning and tried to process this. 3 of the creatures were watching me. One of them was actively smoking from the nostrils. "Rachel," I said. "I handled the paperwork," she said from my shoulder. "You handled it wrong." "I handled it to keep you alive." A pause. "The previous breeder was eaten," she said. "Yes. By which one?" She pointed to the one in the middle. "Fantastic," I said. I had survived 31 years of professional fighting. I had survived being summoned to the wrong side of an Isekai war. I had survived becoming a slave and then a slave commander in a demon fortress. I was not going to be eaten by a dog, no matter what kind of dog it was. That much I had decided. The creatures were called gravers. Rachel translated that as roughly meaning grave diggers or burrowers. It did not seem like a comforting name. They were intelligent, in the way that apex predators are intelligent. Not in a speaking way, not in a following orders way, in a reading you way. They knew immediately if you were afraid of them. Fear invited aggression. That was the rule of the kennel as far as I could tell. The previous breeders had been afraid. I was not afraid, not because I was brave, Because I was tired. There is a kind of tiredness that sits below fear and makes fear feel like too much effort. I had been that tired since the truck, maybe before. I walked into the kennel on the first morning and sat down on the floor at eye level with the middle graver and waited. It watched for a very long time. Then it came over and sniffed me. Then it went back to its corner and lay down. That was the beginning of a working relationship. What the creatures taught me, what I did not expect, was patience. You cannot hurry a graver. You cannot command it. You can only be consistent, present, reliable, clear. And they respond to that. They respond to someone who knows what they are and does not pretend otherwise. I thought about that. I thought about the demon army. I thought about the world I had found myself in. Maybe all things respond to that. Presence, reliability, clarity. Maybe I had been doing that all along. Maybe that was the only reason I was still breathing. She was small and furious and unable to go home either. That was the thing about Rachel that I kept coming back to. My situation was an accident, a catastrophe. But at least I had not caused my own catastrophe. She had caused hers. She had summoned the wrong man to the wrong side, and she was serving the consequences alongside me. Some nights, when the fortress was quiet, she would sit on the edge of my sleeping pallet and talk. Not about escape plans or intelligence reports, about the human kingdoms, the world she had meant to send me to. She described the holy capital with its white towers, the king's court with its politics and its poetry and its endless ceremony, the heroes' quarters where the summoned champions were trained and praised and prepared. "You would have been wonderful there," she said once. Very quietly, "You would have been exactly what they needed." I listened. I did not say, "I am not sure that world would have deserved me." I did not say, "Maybe the side you put me on needed me more." I was not ready to say those things yet. But the thought was there, growing, like something planted in bad soil that refuses to die. The middle graver, I had named it something Rachel refused to translate, got loose in the third week of my tenure. It made its way into the officers' quarters, left evidence of its passage on several walls, and 3 items of expensive furniture, and 1 extremely startled adjutant, the Legion commander, sent for me. This was the first time I had been in the same room as him. He was enormous, the kind of enormous that makes rooms feel like closets. He looked at me the way the entire demon army had been looking at me, like something that had appeared in the wrong place and had not yet had the decency to leave. "Your dog," he said. "My quarters." "Yes," I said. "Explain." I had 3 options: apologize and offer punishment, standard slave response, justify and deflect, standard bureaucratic response, or tell the truth. I had spent 2 months watching what worked in this world, what the demons responded to. They responded to directness. They were not sophisticated liars. They valued people who weren't either. "It happened because the previous containment protocol was wrong," I said. "I identified the flaw on day 2. I submitted a report to the allocation office. The report was filed and not acted on. I can show you the document trail if you would like to verify." Rachel had coached me on this for 20 minutes beforehand. The Legion commander stared at me. "You're the hero," he said. It was not a question. "Apparently," I said. Something moved through his enormous face. I could not read it. "Fix the protocol," he said. I was dismissed. I had survived. That much I had decided. The rest was just execution. The promotion to cooking company commander made Rachel cry, not from happiness. "This is not upward mobility," she said. "You are a champion. You should be fighting. Doing something worthy of." "Rachel," I said. "Yes? Where did fighting get me in this world?" A pause. "Into a slave unit," she said. "And where did managing things get me?" A longer pause. "Out of it," she said. "Right. The cooking company was 23 soldiers, 12 auxiliaries, and a supply chain that had been mismanaged for approximately 6 months. The food the demon army ate was not what I expected. Rich, complex, layered. The demon palate was sophisticated in ways the demon army's reputation was not. They took food seriously. They had ceremonies around food. Hierarchies of flavor that mapped directly onto social standing. Cooking here was not maintenance. It was politics. And I had just been handed the politics. I spent the first 3 days eating everything. Just eating, tasting, comparing. The soldiers found it strange. A human, methodically working through the entire menu, taking notes in the margins of the supply ledgers. Rachel translated my questions. What do the commanders prefer? What is served at victory celebrations? What does the Demon King eat on formal occasions? I was building something, not a plan for escape, not yet. Something more immediate, a reputation. The kind of reputation that opens doors. One exceptional meal at a time. The first time I cooked for the upper officers was an accident. The scheduled cook for the commander's review dinner was unable to perform. Food poisoning. The irony was not lost on anyone. I was the only person in the company who understood both the technical requirements of the dinner and the social weight of who would be eating it. Rachel argued against it. "If you fail," she said, "you will embarrass the entire company. The commanders will remember. The Legion commander will." "What does the 3rd Corps commander eat?" I interrupted. "She what? Hemus. The 3rd Corps commander. What does she prefer? You've been collecting intelligence on the upper command structure. You told me she attends these reviews." Rachel went quiet. Then, reluctantly, "She prefers something sour. Sharp. She dislikes sweetness. She grew up in the northern fortresses. The food there is austere. And the 2nd Corps commander, Park Hyun-seok, former human warrior, she eats what humans eat, roughly. She has never fully adapted to demon cuisine." "Perfect," I said. "That is not reassuring," Rachel said. But I was already at the preparation table. Already in the only kind of thinking I knew, the athlete's concentration, the complete narrowing of attention to the task. No past, no future, only the work in front of me. And the work in front of me was exceptional. That much I had decided. I cooked for 17 upper officers that night. The meal had 6 courses, each one calibrated, not to be impressive, to be right. The difference is everything. Impressive is a performance for the room. Right is something that finds the individual, something that says, "I know you. I know what you need from this table tonight." Hemis was the one I watched most carefully. She sat at the far end from the Legion commander. Deliberately, I suspected. The distance between a powerful subordinate and the superior she does not entirely trust. I had seen that dynamic before. In press conferences, in training camps. Power distributed unevenly and everyone pretending otherwise. She ate slowly. She was precise. She noticed the sourness in the 3rd course and paused with the first bite, just for a moment, then continued. She did not look at the kitchen, but at the end of the meal, she asked the adjutant who had cooked. The adjutant told her. She did not react, but she asked the question. That was enough. Park Hyun-seok, the 2nd Corps commander who had once been human, ate the 4th course twice, asked where the technique came from, was told the new human cook. She was quiet for the rest of the meal, the kind of quiet that has thoughts inside it. I cleaned the kitchen alone after they left. Rachel sat on the counter. "Well," she said. "Yes," I said. "That went—" "Don't say it yet," I said. "Why not?" "Because nothing is certain until it's certain. I had learned that in 31 years of fighting. You don't count a victory until you're out of the ring." And I was very much still in the ring. There were nights when it caught up with me, when the distance between what I had been and what I was became impossible to manage from the inside. I tried not to let it happen in front of Rachel. She had enough to carry. But alone in the dim light of the supply room that served as my quarters, I let myself feel it. Not grief. I am not a man who grieves easily. But something adjacent to it. The weight of all the versions of myself I had put away in order to survive here. The champion, the celebrity, the Korean son who had made his parents proud. The man who had worked his entire life toward one single title and finally earned it and then had it mean nothing because a truck was white and going 40 kilometers an hour. I had been the strongest man in the world, and in this world I was a cook, a very good cook. A cook who was building something, but still a cook. I let myself sit with that for exactly as long as it needed, and then I put it away. Not forever, just back into the place where it lived. The place below the training, below the strategy, below the function. Where all the things you cannot afford to feel wait patiently for a better time. I would survive. That much I had decided. But survival is never free. It costs something every day. You just pay in installments. In my 3rd month as cooking company commander, something happened that I had not anticipated. I started paying attention to the war itself, not tactically, not from a survival perspective, philosophically. Rachel had been bringing me intelligence reports for months. I had read them for what they told me about the power structure. I had not read them for what they told me about the war. When I started reading them that way, I saw something that troubled me. The demon army was fighting to protect territory. Established settlements, farming communities, villages of low-ranking demons and non-combatants who had been living in these lands for centuries. The human kingdoms were expanding into those lands, burning what they found, replacing it with the architecture of the Gatran Holy Empire. Its churches, its hierarchies, its absolute certainty that what lived here before did not deserve to remain. "Rachel," I said one morning, "In my world, the one you meant to send me to, who are the heroes supposed to be fighting for?" She looked at me, something careful in her expression. For the humans, she said, against the demons. Why? A pause. Because that is the correct order, she said. By whose definition? She did not answer immediately. By the definition of the gods who created the system, she said. And the gods who created the system, I said. Were they human? She did not answer that one at all. That was the most honest answer she could have given. Hemis came to the kitchen for the first time on a morning with no reason for her to be there. No inspection scheduled, no official review. She simply appeared at the door and waited. She was taller than I expected up close. Most of the demon commanders were, but she held herself differently from the others, a kind of precision, every movement deliberate, nothing wasted. I recognized the body language. It was the body language of someone who had survived things by being exactly as good as they needed to be and not one fraction more. You cooked the dinner, she said. Yes, I said. The third course, the sour thing, fermented grain paste, northern style, reduced for intensity. She looked at me. How did you know? I was told you grew up in the northern fortresses. By who? A source who was very reluctant to tell me. Something almost moved in her face. It did not quite become an expression, but it was close. You're the hero, she said. That seems to be the consensus. Who sent you here? A navigation error, I said. On the part of my fairy. She looked around the kitchen. No sign of Rachel, who had made herself extremely scarce. You're not what I expected, Hemis said. What did you expect? She thought about it. Someone angry, she said. I am angry, I said. I'm just busy. That almost became an expression. She turned and left. I stood in the kitchen for a moment. Something had shifted. I was not sure what, but something. There was a mission in the 21st chapter of my time here. I am reluctant to call it a battle. It was smaller than that. A supply convoy. A demon settlement being threatened. The 2nd Slave Unit, now under a new commander, my former unit, was tasked to support the defensive line. I was tasked to follow with field rations, to feed the soldiers. I had not been outside the fortress in months. The air was different out there. Colder, sharper. The sky was a color that reminded me of winter training camps in the mountains of my own world. I breathed it in and felt, briefly, like myself. The real one, before the truck, before the portal, before all of this. Then the sounds of the line reached me and I was back. The settlement was a cluster of stone buildings, low to the ground, built to last. Demon families had been here for at least 2 generations. I could tell from the gardens. You do not plant a garden you don't expect to tend for years. The human unit advancing from the east was burning the gardens as it came, methodically, with the particular efficiency of people who had been told this was a holy task and had believed it. I watched from the supply line. I fed the soldiers who held the defensive position. I did not fight, but I watched. And what I watched was the human side of this war doing something I could not call justified, no matter how I tried. The story I had been given did not fit the evidence. It had not fit the evidence for a while now. I was finally, irrevocably, admitting that. What do you do when the world you believed in turns out to be wrong? I had believed once in the purity of competition. The idea that inside the ring everything was clean. 2 people, equal rules, the better one wins. I had believed that until I saw the way promoters controlled outcomes, the way money moved around results, the way the better one was often the one with the right sponsor. I had adapted. I had kept competing anyway, not because I believed in the purity anymore, but because I believed in my own ability, my own standard, the version of winning I controlled. This was similar. I could not change the war. I could not fix the human side's cruelty or the demon side's history of its own cruelties. I was not naive enough to think the demons were innocent. I had seen enough in these months. But I had also seen enough to know that the story being told about this war was not the whole story. And a man who fights for a cause without knowing what the cause actually is not a hero. He is a weapon pointed by someone else. I had not survived everything I had survived to be a weapon pointed by someone else. I would choose. When I understood enough to choose, I would. That much I had decided. She came back to the kitchen 3 more times that month, each time with less of a reason, each time staying slightly longer. We talked around important things, about the structure of the army, about the northern fortresses where she had grown up, about once, the fighting techniques of the human champions she had faced in battle. She was curious about my background in a way that was not casual, the way someone is curious when the information might matter later. I was curious about her too, not in the way Rachel assumed when she raised one tiny eyebrow, in the way I was curious about any exceptional opponent. Hemis was the most competent person I had encountered in this world. Not the most powerful, the most competent. There is a difference. Power is what you have. Competence is what you do with what you have. And she was exceptional at it. She told me on the third visit about her command, the Third Corps, its history, its losses, its current state. She told me matter-of-factly the way soldiers report, but I had spent months reading the gaps in what people said. The Third Corps had been badly damaged in a campaign 2 years ago. The human champions had been particularly effective that year. She had rebuilt it from almost nothing. The unit that now answered to her was her creation in every meaningful sense. That must have cost something, I said. She looked at me. Everything costs something, she said. Yes, as I said, we understood each other. The promotion to regiment commander was the one I hadn't seen coming. I should have. In retrospect, the trajectory was clear. Slave commander, dog breeder, cooking commander. Each step had given me wider access, better intelligence, more trust. But I had not allowed myself to see the endpoint, because seeing the endpoint would have meant accepting that I was building a career here, in the demon army, on the wrong side, and I was not ready to accept that. The Legion commander called me into his quarters. The graver, the middle one, my graver, was there. It looked at me and made a sound that was not quite a growl. I had learned what that sound meant. It was greeting. The Legion commander watched this exchange. The Frisch regiment, he said, under 3rd Corps. I knew Frisch. Rachel had briefed me. A direct command regiment. Small, specialized, answerable to Hemis. Your assignment is confirmed, the Legion commander said. I don't have military experience, I said. You have something more useful, he said. What's that? The ability to make things work that shouldn't work. He dismissed me. I walked out of his quarters. Rachel was waiting. Regiment commander, she said. Yes, I said. You're in the Demon King's army, she said. Yes, I said. As an officer, yes. She was quiet for a moment. Are you okay, she said. I thought about it. Ask me again later, I said, when I know. Reporting to Hemis was different from anything else I had experienced in this world. Every other relationship here had been defined by hierarchy. The ones above me who could decide my fate, the ones below me who I was responsible for. With Hemis, it was something else, a lateral respect. The kind that exists between two people who recognize each other's competence before they recognize much else. She briefed me on the Frisch regiment's current state. 42 soldiers, undermanned, 3 experienced veterans, the rest either new or transferred from failing units. A history of being used as a reaction force, called in when things went wrong. Specialists in last resort situations. They have a reputation, she said. Good or bad, I asked. Complicated, she said. For the Demon King's army, what does complicated mean? She almost smiled. It was not quite an expression, but it was the closest she had come. It means they get the missions no one else wants, she said, and they complete them. With what success rate? They come back, she said. Most of them? Most of them. I stood in front of the Frisch regiment the next morning, 42 soldiers, some curious, some contemptuous, some simply blank. A human in a demon regiment, a champion turned cook turned commander, the one mistake that heaven made and could not take back. My name is Choi Hyun-seok, I said. I don't know this world's magic. I don't know your combat techniques. I don't know what you've been through. I will learn. What I know is how to make something that shouldn't work. That's what I'm told you need. Let's find out if that's true. They looked at me. Some of them for the first time really looked. That was enough to start. Leading the Frisch regiment gave me something I had not had before. A view from inside the mechanism of the war, the way orders moved, the way intelligence was gathered and acted on, the gap between what the upper command knew and what they admitted they knew, the things that didn't get reported upward because reporting them would embarrass someone important. The human side, what I could learn of it from intelligence reports, was not a clean thing. The Gatran Holy Empire that drove the offensive had its own internal fissures. The noble houses that funded the campaigns wanted territory and resources. The church that provided the ideological scaffolding wanted converts and influence. The actual soldiers, pressed men mostly, from the villages the empire had absorbed, wanted to go home, and the heroes, the summoned champions who were supposed to lead the charge, they were the most complicated of all. People like me, or rather, people like what I was supposed to be, pulled from their worlds, given power, given purpose, pointed at something and told it was evil. Most of them probably believed it. I had believed it. Before I saw it, I thought about Rachel's description of the heroes' quarters. The white towers, the ceremony, the praise, the care that had been taken to make the heroes feel that the cause they were fighting for was righteous. Because if you feel righteous enough, you don't ask questions. I had never been good at not asking questions. Maybe that was why the universe had sent me here instead. I found Park Hyana in the library. The demon army had a library. That had surprised me the first time Rachel mentioned it. It should not have. Every civilization with enough time develops libraries. Every civilization reads. She was reading a human history text, the kind printed in the Gatrin Holy Empire. She looked up when I entered. We had spoken a handful of times after the dinner where I had cooked for the officers. Briefly, carefully. The way two people navigate the fact that they are from the same world, and this has not made them allies. You were a hero, I said. It was not quite a question. One of the first generation, she said. 12 years ago. What happened? She put the book down. I asked questions, she said. Something moved in my chest, the recognition of a fellow feeling. What kind of questions? The same ones you're asking now, she said. I can tell. I recognize the expression, the one that comes after. You see what the human side does to the things it doesn't want to exist. I sat down across from her, and then I stopped fighting for them, she said. And the demon army took me in, she said. After significant skepticism. It took 3 years before they trusted me with anything, 5 before I had a core. She said this without bitterness, simply as a record. Do you regret it? I asked. She thought about it. I regret that it was necessary, she said, not what I chose. I sat with that. For a long time, the library was very quiet around us, the history text on the table between us, 2 humans on the wrong side. Or the right side. I still was not entirely certain which. The mission came through official channels. A report of a Holy Empire convoy moving through the contested border territory. Not military, a ceremonial procession. A figure of religious significance being transferred between the capital and the eastern frontier. Intelligence flagged it as an opportunity for disruption. He misbriefed me personally. Your regiment, she said. Intercept and assess. Do not engage unless necessary. We need to know who they're moving and why. Observe and report, I said, with the option to engage. Correct. Any identification of the figure? She hesitated. A saint in training, she said, from the royal house of Marriott. The sect princess. Name. Abelson. I filed the name. Age? Young, Hemis said. Be careful. The mission briefing ended. I went back to the regiment's quarters. Stood in the doorway. 42 soldiers preparing. Checking weapons. Checking supplies. Going about the efficient rituals of people who had done this before. My regiment, my responsibility, my choice. I would survive this. That much I had decided, but I was beginning to understand that survival was no longer the only thing I was deciding. The convoy was smaller than the intelligence suggested. 6 guards, 1 carriage, a banner I recognized from Rachel's descriptions, the Golden Cross of the Gatrin Holy Empire. We watched from the ridge, the regiment waited, 42 soldiers behind me in the cold. I had the option to let it pass. The mission was observe and assess. The mission did not require engagement. I was about to signal a withdrawal when the carriage stopped, and a girl stepped out, young. 17, maybe, in the white robes of an apprentice priest. She stood in the middle of the road and looked at the ridge where we were hidden. Directly at the ridge, not at a general landscape, at us, specifically, calmly. She can sense us, Rachel breathed. Holy magic, I said. Yes. Rachel went very still. She's very strong, she said, for her age, for anyone. The girl in the white robes had not moved. She was still looking at us. Still calm. The way someone is calm when they have decided something already and are waiting for the world to catch up. One of her guards reached for her arm. She stepped away from his hand and waited. I did not know what I was supposed to do. I had been told. Observe and assess. Observe and assess meant this: a second princess of Marriott, a saint in training with exceptional holy magic, young, strong, currently standing alone in a road waiting for a demon regiment to decide her fate. And something in the way she stood, the particular stillness of someone who had also put everything away into the place where difficult things wait. Something in that. Something I recognized. I came down from the ridge alone, left the regiment in position, left Rachel making a very quiet panicking sound behind me, walked down to the road, stood 20 feet from the girl in white robes. We looked at each other. You're human, she said. Yes, I said. You're with the demon army. Currently. I said, how? Not a question. The same kind of not question Hemis asked. The kind that means, I have already understood the shape of this. Tell me the details. I was summoned to the wrong side, I said, by a navigation error. Something moved in her expression, something almost like, that would explain some things. Are you going to capture me? She said. I'm assessing, I said. That's not an answer. No, I said. You're right. I thought about everything that had brought me to this road, the championship belt in my hand on the day I died, the white of the truck, Rachel's apologetic face, the chains, the stone room, the 43 people behind me on this ridge, Hemus in the kitchen, asking how I knew about northern food, Park Hyun-ah reading human history in a demon library, the gardens burning in the village that the human side had taken, and this girl standing in the middle of a road, waiting for someone to decide what side she was on, what side any of us were on. I looked at her. She looked at me. The story I had been given was wrong. I had known that for weeks. But knowing a story is wrong and writing a new one are different things entirely. One is clarity. The other is a choice. I was the hero who landed on the wrong side of the war. I was the strongest man in a world that no longer knew my name. I was the champion who became a slave before he fired a single punch. And I was, right now, standing in a road between two armies with a choice in front of me that no one who sent me here had planned for. I would survive. That much I had always decided, but survival was not the only thing worth deciding for. Not anymore. My name is Choi Hyun-seok, I said. I used to be a hero. I still am, I think. Just not the kind anyone expected. The girl in white looked at me. Something passed through her face. Something that might have been recognition. Might have been hope. Might have been the beginning of an understanding that was going to change everything that came after. The cold wind moved through the contested border. Behind me, 42 soldiers. Ahead of me, everything I hadn't yet decided, but I had survived the wrong side of the war. I had learned its language, its food, its politics, its grief. And now, for the first time since the truck was white and the portal went wrong and hell began, I understood what I was choosing, not a side. A truth. The truth that there are no good wars, only people, and some of them, no matter which side they land on, refuse to become what the war needs them to be. I would survive. I would choose. That much I had decided.